Welcome to the Real Estate Show with Pat Lopez, where we talk everything real estate. Today, my guest is Joe Gomez from the Summers team and KW Empower. Joe, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Pat.
Okay, I always start off the show by asking all my guests, how did you get started in real estate? So tell me your story.
So I've always been in real estate, just different avenues of it. Initially, I had a couple of investment properties, and I decided to cut out the middleman and essentially get my license myself.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Now, how long ago was that? Or when did you start investing in real estate? What did that look like?
It's been about 2 years, but I got my license last year.
Okay, so you were investing. Now, what was the thought process of saying, hey, I want to buy an investment property? Well, where was that motivation? Where did that come from?
So my mother reached out to me, and she asked if I could help her with an investment property that she kind of got her hands on.
Okay.
And the more I learned about it, the more I learned the intricacies, the more I realized how ignorant I was of the whole process of real estate.
Right.
So I decided to get my license and kind of get to know the business a little bit more before I put more money into it.
Okay. And then before 2 years ago, 5 years ago, what were you doing?
So I own the distribution route with Campbell's.
Okay.
So I was running that for a bit, for 5 years. And I decided it's about time to try something different.
Okay. And so let's jump into, you got licensed, about a year ago, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. And one of the biggest reasons I wanted you on the show is just through our conversations, you mentioned how in your first year, you were able to close 10 transactions. Mm-hmm. And if we just look at statistics nationally, 50% of all agents close 0 to 1 transactions. And 20%, pretty much they do all the business on there. So starting out in the first year, doing 10 deals is pretty darn good. You should be proud of yourself far as that. So my first question for you is, what are you doing? What do you think is your key success? Go ahead.
I think it's a mixture of luck and confidence. I got very fortunate that I was able to join a great brokerage with KW Empower, and a great team was the Summers team, that they gave me a lot of leads. And I just had the confidence to really actually act on them. I know a lot of new agents, I think their biggest downfall is just like the unknown and the fear that they're going to mess something up. But I was willing to just kind of learn by burn and put myself out there. And that just was a snowball effect.
Okay. So now the Summers team, was that the only agency you've been with?
Yes.
Okay. So you started out with them. Now you mentioned, they were giving you leads. So, what kind of leads were that, or were some of this business, self-generated as well? What does that look like?
Well, a couple of them were self-generated. One of them was part of a property I buy into my own investment portfolio. But my first lead ever was someone on my team. He just saw I haven't had any transactions that month, and him and I, we met. At this point, I was 2 months into getting my license, so I was just kind of going to these happy hours for the free food and drinks, and he saw that I didn't have any transactions that month, and he called me like, hey, do you want to represent one of our buyers? And that was my first sale. And that led into my second one, which was a self-generated sphere lead. And then eventually I had the confidence to join kind of like the sphere that the team has with different platforms. And that, progressed from there.
Okay. So I'm going to ask some questions because I'm interested.
Of course.
But, okay, so for the self-generating leads, how did you go about getting those? Was it just, calling friends and family? What did you do to let people know that you were an agent?
So that was where luck came in. I was at my bank. I was meeting with my first ever banker, and she just switched over to another bank, and she was trying to convince me to open up an account with her. And in the process, just talking to her and just making small talk in the middle of business, I mentioned I recently got my real estate license, and that led to her being my biggest client. Okay. And it was honestly just really, really dumb luck, and kind of not being afraid to put yourself out there and take the confidence, kind of portray the confidence to do this.
Okay. Yeah. Now, as far as friends and family, did you reach out to all of them, or you just didn't do that? You just, anybody you talked to, you mentioned that you were an agent, and that's how that self-generating leads came about.
Mainly has been talking to different people and networking. I haven't really put myself out there too much. 'Cause I think nowadays everyone and their aunts are real estate agents, so it's kind of hard competing with people that have been in the industry for so long. But talking to people and letting them get to know me first has been the biggest kind of win I've been having with generating leads.
Okay. Okay. So now, as far as team leads from the office, where do they come from? Are they, like Zillow type things, or if it's, their website, where are some of those leads coming from?
Mainly Zillow. We're one of the few teams that are part of Zillow. Because I always tell people, if you press so many buttons on Zillow, my phone's going to ring.
Right.
And that's been probably 90% of my business, and most of the agents on our team, most of their business as well. But we also have other platforms like Mavoto and Homelight and other places that leads just come in, and our team leaders, Chris and Stephanie, are great dispersing them to the proper channels.
Okay, now, since Zillow, a lot of people have success with Zillow, a lot of people don't have success with Zillow. I mean, it's you get a coin, you flip it up in the air.
For sure.
What are you doing to have success in Zillow, in your opinion? Like, what do you think is moving that needle?
I try to get to know the client as soon as possible. Like I mentioned before, I try to sell myself first and then sell my service by being an agent. So as soon as I get a call, I try to set something up as soon as possible, even if it's like a property that like it may be out of their reach, or they're just still trying to get to know different neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. I just want to make that initial meeting, and from there build a strong bond and like a building block to eventually get them to the table on their first or second or 20th home.
Right. Okay. Mm-hmm. So you're doing the Zillow where you guys give it's the referral fee through Zillow, right? Yeah. So you're getting a phone call. Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Not getting the lead and then having to call yourself. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you're picking up the phone, which makes it easier, but a lot less commission, right? Yeah. Okay, good. And then just creating that bond is what you're saying would be, the number one and key. Okay, so now let me ask you this. Being a newer agent, how did you get familiar with different neighborhoods and just the business itself?
Okay, so as I mentioned before, I had a couple already like properties, right. And I've lived in Philadelphia for the majority of my life, so I know different neighborhoods, and I try to stay in quote unquote like my expertise. So that'll be, that'll be like North Philly or Northeast, where I grew up most of my life. And taking advantage of, I never say no. If someone wants to see a property in Chester, PA, okay, let's go to Chester, let's go see it. Because even if they don't buy something in Chester, now I know the neighborhood better and I can help the next person.
Right.
So that's been a tool that I've been using since getting my license.
Okay. And then I've talked to other agents where they turn around and they said, they're constantly on the MLS. They're looking at everything that's new popping up to really, really, get their fingers on what's going on. So if anybody asks them any question, they just know it. Mm-hmm. Are you on the MLS a lot, or is that part of your learning of just knowing what's hitting the market at all times?
So that's what I want to work on this year, is kind of be more of a encyclopedia when it comes to like real estate. And that was always the goal, is just to know the business as much as physically possible or like mentally possible. And so that is my goal now, is to just really study, not just the MLS, study different state laws, zonings, available grants, just so I could be your one-stop real estate guy.
Right.
So that's the plan for 2025.
Okay, great. So, and as far as, putting together a contract, talking to listing agents or talking to buyer's agents, if you have a listing, those kind of things, I guess, the team and I guess Chris and, the staff, they really helped you work through that. Is that the deal?
Yes, for sure. 100%. I lean on the team a lot whenever I need help. But also just being friendly with other agents. I've been on the buyer side in all my transactions, and just kind of being friendly and transparent to the listing agent, and not being afraid to just tell them, hey, I don't really know what this is exactly. 9 out of 10 times, if you're cool with them, they're going to be cool with you, and they help you out through the process as well. Because at the end, we're all just trying to get paid.
Right. Exactly. And that is true. Okay. So I have 2 more questions. One's going to be, how did somebody get a hold of you? But before I do that, so what do you think, in your opinion, because you're new, but doing 10 transactions a year for being brand new is pretty darn good. what do you think is the most important thing for somebody who's struggling? You know, maybe they only did one transaction or two, or they're thinking about getting into the business. You know, what do you think is the most important thing? And it could be a million different things, because I always say there's not a million, but there's at least 10, 15 different ways of being super successful in real estate. You know, some people knock on doors, some people call expired, some people call FSBOs, some people are great on social media, some Zillow. You know, there's a million different ways, you know, to skin a cat. Sorry, cat. But what do you think is the most important thing somebody can do to, you know, energize their business, or if they're just starting out in business?
I think it's honestly, my big thing is confidence. Don't be afraid to do the work and the research needed to put yourself out there. I know if Chris, this is his big thing is inertia. Chris Summers is once that ball's rolling, you have to clear everything out the way. So I think for any new agent or any struggling agent, just try to grasp something, find your niche, and like stick with it for a bit, you know, and eventually things will start picking up. Don't be afraid to, sometimes like things are going to slow down. Like the process is going to slow down a little bit, and don't let that discourage you. It's a shame the majority of agents on the first year they leave or they quit, and this is just the beginning. You know, the ball is just starting to roll. So I think if you just let it happen while clearing out the roadblocks, naturally things are going to start clicking.
Right. Okay, perfect. Okay, so if somebody like what you have to say, and they're thinking about buying a property or selling a property, how would they get a hold of you?
You can email me at joe@thesummersteam, it's jo@thesummersteam.com, or just give me a call or text. My number is 267-265-4561.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for being on the show. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Pat.
Just really wanted the insight of a newer agent, because sometimes I'll have agents that have been in business for 20 years. Well, if you're newer, you may not be able to identify with that person, and that person's maybe doing some completely different things than a newer one. So, you know, thank you for that perspective. Really appreciate that. Well, that's the Real Estate Show with Pat Lopez. Be sure to follow the show on Facebook, Instagram, subscribe below. Super important. I have some great guests coming lined up, so you don't want to miss out what they have to say. Also, leave a comment. Tell me some things that you'd like me to cover in the future. Remember, this show is everything real estate, no limits. Hope you enjoyed the show.